Hello, I'm Anne Tarker, board member.
And I'm Aisha Akinwale, a member of the technical staff.
In this webcast, Aisha and I will cover the 2019 IFRS Taxonomy, published in March this year. Firstly, we'll provide an overview of the IFRS Taxonomy and how it fits into a central theme of the board's work. Next, we will focus on the 2019 IFRS Taxonomy and highlight key changes from the 2018 IFRS Taxonomy. Then we will inform you of supporting materials to access the IFRS Taxonomy and further understand its content. We will end the webcast by pointing out 4 ways in which you can stay abreast of and contribute to the IFRS Taxonomy activities. Let's begin with a brief overview of the IFRS Taxonomy. The board is looking at how it can improve the communication of information in financial reports. We're exploring improvements to both the content of financial reports and how that content is delivered. We have labelled this work Better Communication in Financial Reporting. It forms one of the central themes of the board's work plan. The IFRS Taxonomy is an important part of the better communication theme. We have 4 components to this theme. The first is the Primary Financial Statements project. It's looking at how to improve the presentation of information in the primary financial statements. The project is focusing on improvements to the structure and content of the Statement of Financial Performance. The second component, the Disclosure Initiative, is looking at how we can improve disclosures in the financial statements. The third component is looking at how to improve the information in the front half of financial reports, for example, the management commentary or MD&A. And then finally, the IFRS Taxonomy provides the means by which this information can be delivered to users of financial reports. It addresses the needs of those users that prefer to receive IFRS financial information in an electronic format. The content of the IFRS Taxonomy is sourced from 3 main areas. First, the presentation and disclosure requirements in IFRS standards. Second, from the presentation and disclosure examples and implementation guidance that accompany the IFRS standards. Finally, it includes the content that reflects common reporting practice. The taxonomy team at the IFRS Foundation undertake reviews of reporting practice. The purpose of these reviews is to identify disclosures that are not specifically required by IFRS standards, but are frequently provided across a range of companies and jurisdictions. However, the common practice content of the IFRS taxonomy is consistent with the IFRS standards. Including these content areas in the IFRS taxonomy contributes to enabling better communication between preparers and users of electronic information. This slide illustrates how a company uses the IFRS taxonomy to communicate information. Companies use elements from the IFRS taxonomy to tag information in their financial reports. In this case, the company uses the cost of sales element to tag its cost of sales of $26,000. Tagging information in this way enables software to quickly extract the information and compare it to the same information provided by other companies reporting electronically. This makes it easier and quicker for users of financial statements to analyze financial information. In addition to providing element labels, the IFRS taxonomy includes other attributes, such as the element reference and the documentation label, to help preparers understand the accounting meaning of the element. As you can see, the element reference identifies the content area that the element is sourced from. In this case, the cost of sales element is sourced from the disclosure requirements in paragraphs 99 and 103 of IAS 1. The documentation label provides a description of the information that can be tagged with this element. The IFRS Foundation's Due Process Handbook establishes the process for developing the IFRS taxonomy. The process starts once the possible changes to the taxonomy have been identified. This can occur in one of 3 ways. The first is when the board issues or amends IFRS standards. The second is when the IFRS Taxonomy team identifies new elements as a result of a review of common reporting practice. The third is through the identification of general improvements to the IFRS Taxonomy. Generally, improvements usually result from stakeholder feedback. For taxonomy content arising from new or amended IFRS standards, the board approves the content changes. For the common practice and general improvement projects, the content changes are reviewed by the IFRS Taxonomy Review Panel. This panel consists of 3 to 5 board members. Any changes to the IFRS Taxonomy, whether they arise from changes to the standards, common reporting practice, or identified general improvements, are subject to public consultation before they are finalised. This is done through the publication of a proposed taxonomy update. In addition, the IFRS Taxonomy Consultative Group provides technical advice and guidance on all updates to the IFRS Taxonomy. The group consists of external experts with appropriate knowledge of accounting and taxonomies. The annual IFRS Taxonomy incorporates the updates finalised during the year. As a result, it is not subject to the separate consultation process.
Next, we'll elaborate on the content of the 2019 IFRS Taxonomy and how the new content has been identified. The 2019 IFRS Taxonomy was released in March. It reflects the full IFRS standards as at the 1st of January 2019, including those that have been issued but are not yet effective. The 2019 IFRS Taxonomy also includes elements for reporting based on the IFRS for SME standard and the practice statement and management commentary. So what's new in the 2019 IFRS Taxonomy? Well, relative to the 2018 Taxonomy, the 2019 Taxonomy includes additional content from 2 sources. The first is from a review of common reporting practice on IFRS 13, that is on fair value measurement, and the second from general improvement. This content changes relate only to the full IFRS standards. No changes have been made to the content for the IFRS for SME standard and management commentary. So let's start with the content changes arising from the review of common reporting practice. The objective of including common practice content in the IFRS taxonomy is to reduce the need for companies and regulators to create their own taxonomy elements or extensions. Adding common practice elements to the IFRS taxonomy results in more consistent tagging across companies. This in turn enhances comparability of the tagged information for users of financial statements. In this case, we analyzed a sample of financial statements prepared applying IFRS standards. This was to identify commonly reported information on fair value measurement. As a result of that analysis, 130 new elements have been added to the IFRS taxonomy. These changes can be broken down into 4 sets. The first set of new elements are intended to make it easier to extract and analyze the sensitivity analysis of fair value measurement separately from other fair value disclosures. The second set of new elements are designed to help preparers tag inputs used in sensitivity analysis and disclosures about the effects on fair value. Specifically, this set includes new elements to allow preparers to specify whether the change in fair value is due to an increase or a decrease in the inputs. We also added new elements to allow tagging of sensitivity analysis in which one input is changed at a time, separately from sensitivity analysis in which multiple inputs are changed simultaneously. Finally, with this set of changes, we added new elements to allow tagging of changes in fair value that separately show the effect of those changes in profit or loss and OCI, both before and after tax. The third set of new elements result from an enhanced modeling of unobservable inputs used in determining fair value. We observed that companies disclose information about many company-specific unobservable inputs for which they have to create extensions. We have not added all of these inputs to the IFRS taxonomy. Instead, we changed the modeling for these disclosures to make it easier for users of financial statements to analyze the information. The enhanced modeling will enable any company-specific extensions created to tag the information to be linked to an IFRS taxonomy element. We also added new elements for commonly disclosed unobservable inputs such as discount rates, rent, capitalization rates, and credit spreads. The final set of new elements aim to better reflect various fair value disclosures. We've introduced new elements for disclosures about valuation techniques, as well as new elements that allow the tagging of liabilities disaggregated by class. We also added elements to allow companies to tag line items for exchange differences in their reconciliation from opening fair value to closing fair value. Finally, we added new elements to tag narrative information about transfers between all levels of the fair value hierarchy. Now that I have summarized the new elements resulting from the common practice analysis on IFRS 13, let's move on to the changes resulting from general improvements. The objective of general improvement is to improve the content and technical structure of the IFRS taxonomy. By undertaking general improvements, we facilitate easier use of the IFRS taxonomy for companies. This in turn results in more consistent tagging across companies. The improvement in the 2019 IFRS taxonomy can be broken down into 5 sets. The first set of improvements relate to the introduction of implementation notes that provide guidance on how to use specific elements. When tagging information, preparers need to ensure that the correct sign, that is positive or negative, is attributed to the element. Normally, the assigned balance attributes, which indicate whether the element is a debit or credit, as well as the element label, can be used to determine the correct sign. However, for some elements, it is not possible to assign balance attribute. An example is the credit derivative element because it does not have a natural accounting balance. As a result, we introduced implementation notes that clarify whether a positive or negative sign should be entered for 116 IFRS taxonomy elements that cannot be assigned balance attributes. The second set of improvements clarified a sign to be reported for certain other elements. This included assigning a debit or credit balance attribute to 3 elements, clarifying the element label for 6 elements, and changing the element type to per share for 17 elements. The third set of improvements relate to the introduction of the duration element type for 7 elements that represent a period of time. An example of this element is the weighted average duration of a defined benefit obligation. The duration element type is developed by the International Organization for Standardization. Therefore, by using a globally agreed standard for elements that represent a period of time, the tag data would be easier for users to analyze and compare. The fourth set of improvements use new elements to tag 2 types of information required by IFRS standards. We added new and separate elements for useful lives and for depreciation or amortization rates. This is because even though useful lives and depreciation or amortization rates provide the same type of information to users, they cannot be compared directly. We also added new and separate elements for contingent consideration and for indemnification assets in business combinations. This is because they are different accounting concepts for which it is unlikely that a preparer will report a combined value. The final set of improvements aim to enhance navigation of the IFRS taxonomy, which will help preparers in viewing its content and selecting the correct element. Further details about the changes introduced by both the General Improvement Update and the IFRS 13 Common Practice Update can be found on their respective project pages on our website.
Now we will highlight 5 different resources on our website that you can use to access and further understand the content of the 2019 IFRS Taxonomy, depending on your needs. The first 3 resources will help you access and view the 2019 IFRS Taxonomy. The first resource is the IFRS Taxonomy Illustrated, or the ITI. Physically, the IFRS Taxonomy contains a set of electronic XBRL files. Therefore, those that do not have specialised software can find the files difficult to use and understand. The ITI illustrates the IFRS taxonomy in a simplified, human-readable format that is easier to use and understand. The ITI is available in both HTML and PDF for full IFRS standards and the IFRS for SMEs standard. The second resource is the versioning report. This resource is useful for those who want to understand the changes between the 2018 and 2019 IFRS taxonomies. This report shows those changes in a similar way to how changes are tracked in Microsoft Word. New elements are added to the IFRS taxonomy and underlined and highlighted in green. Similarly, elements that have been deleted are struck through and highlighted in red. The third resource is X-IFRS. This is a tool that provides a view of e-IFRS with embedded IFRS taxonomy elements. It allows the user to view all the IFRS taxonomy elements that are available to tag the disclosure requirements in a paragraph or section of an IFRS standard. This resource is only available to premium e-IFRS subscribers. The next two resources will help you in further understanding the content of the IFRS taxonomy. The first is the documentation labels and implementation notes that help preparers to understand the meaning of IFRS taxonomy elements. Documentation labels provide a definition of each element that are mainly sourced from the IFRS standards and their accompanying materials. Implementation notes, as we've discussed earlier, are new and explain the correct use of IFRS taxonomy elements. The documentation labels and implementation notes are provided together in Excel. It is worth noting that they are also available in HTML version of the ITI. The last resource is our tagging examples. These examples show how the presentation and disclosure examples that accompany the IFRS standards can be tagged using the IFRS taxonomy elements. There is a dedicated page on our website that hosts the 2019 IFRS taxonomy and its supporting materials. You can access that page through the path highlighted on this slide. At the beginning of the webcast, we mentioned how the IFRS taxonomy fits into the central theme of the board's work on better communication of financial reporting. We would like to invite you to get involved with that work. Firstly, you can follow the IFRS taxonomy page on our website. This will allow you to receive email notifications on news alerts highlighting our various activities and updates to educational materials. Second, you can observe public meetings of the IFRS Taxonomy Consultative Group, either online or in our office. Meeting notes are posted shortly after each meeting. Finally, you can help shape the development of the IFRS taxonomy by commenting on our proposed taxonomy updates. Additionally, you can contact us via email with questions, comments, or suggestions for improvements. We hope that you have found this webcast helpful in understanding the 2019 IFRS taxonomy, the changes from the 2018 IFRS taxonomy, and the related supporting materials. Thank you.
Thank you.